And I came across Psalm 139 one day, and the verse it says, I praise you because I'm fearfully, meaning lovingly and wonderfully made. And I knew right in that moment, I was supposed to start some movement or ministry called Wonderfully Made to share the love of God with other girls and women.
God's story, your life. Unfolding short stories.
Climbing trees, kicking goals, and making grades. Allie Marie Smith looked like she had it all together with a fiery spirit. But under the surface, something quiet and heavy began to grow. At age 12, it was sadness. At age 17, there was a traumatic event that supercharged that sadness and drove her to the edge.
My name is Allie Marie Smith, and I live in North Santa Barbara County, and I am the founder and CEO of a ministry for girls and women called Wonderfully Made, dedicated to helping them know their value and lead flourishing lives in God. I'm also the author of Wonderfully Made and the new book, Social Media Reset. As a little girl, I loved sports. I was constantly climbing trees and playing soccer, and my face was always tomato red from hours of playing outside. And I was really feisty and confident as a little girl. Around the age of 12, things changed for me. And I started to experience these uninvited and unexplained feelings of sadness, of loneliness, shame, and unworthiness. And it didn't make sense. I had every reason to be happy, and that just made it worse. I went into high school with big goals and big dreams, but really the sadness continued. And before I knew it in high school, every day became a struggle for me. On the outside, it looked like I was the girl who had it together. I was the captain of the soccer team, a straight-A student, part of the popular crowd. And I just really hustled for my worth. I had always loved God and believed in God, but I didn't know I could have this personal, intimate relationship with Him. And when I was 17, something very traumatic happened to me, and I never told anyone. And because of so many different complexities, it really became the perfect storm. And 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I found myself in a really deep and debilitating depression. And I couldn't eat, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't talk. It was like my body was alive, but there was no life within me. My parents had me admitted to the psychiatric hospital, and I had so much pain that I felt like the only way I could get rid of it was by ending my life. And I believed the lie that the world was better off without me in it. And I was sent home, put on antidepressants 3 days later after I promised the doctor I wouldn't hurt myself. My depression really continued that summer. And one day on a gloomy June morning, I grabbed my car keys and I snuck out of the house. And I drove to the Golden Gate Bridge with the intention to end my life by jumping off. I was getting closer to the bridge. I was driving somewhat recklessly, and my tire hit a curb, and I got a flat tire. I sat in my car, just really paralyzed, unsure what to do. Suddenly, there was a knock on my window, and this kind-hearted, silver-haired man came and asked if he could help me and call for roadside assistance. After not talking to anyone for weeks, I strangely engaged in a real conversation with that man, and it gave me some hope in my heart. And after my tire was fixed, I turned back home, and I went home to my family. My parents were told by doctors that it would be good for me to start college 3,000 miles away on the East Coast. But really, I couldn't even decide if I wanted to live or die. And I was not in a place to travel that far away from home. And even when I did get there at college, I remember one day going by the train tracks by the library and just thinking, about taking my life that way. And it was just such a dark and a terrible time. Before I knew it, I had entered into a really even scarier place, and I had to be flown home. My dad came, and I was readmitted to the psychiatric hospital that fall in September, my 18th year, which would be my freshman year. And I was in such a scary place. And once I had gotten help, the desire to no longer live was beginning to fade. And I was so desperate for hope. And like I said, I always loved God and believed in God. I had never really read the Bible before, but I was so desperate for hope. I asked for a copy. And as I began to read the Gospels for myself, I met Jesus in a very supernatural way. And as I read about him and his love, I saw that he loved the broken and came to give them hope and healing and belonging. I was as broken as a girl could be. Everything that I placed my value and my identity in, from being liked or my appearance or being a good soccer player or straight A student, all of those fleeting identities were taken from me, and I had nothing impressive to offer. But it was there that I discovered my true value simply came from being a child of God. One day, we were taken to the hospital chapel, and as a woman sang Amazing Grace, I was overwhelmed by the perfect love of Jesus that just filled me with hope. And through whispered prayer, I surrendered my life to Jesus, and I said I was going to stop living for myself and I was going to start living for God. It did not take away the depression. I went on to experience depression again in college, but I was forever changed by the love of Christ, and I've been imperfectly following him ever since. And so it was very confusing for me when I did experience depression again in college. I thought that once I came to God, he would take all my problems away. And God saved my life again through one day hitting really rock bottom again. And he saved my life and he spared my life. And he has restored me. Shortly after my first hospitalization, it was clear that God had given me a heart to help other girls and women know God and their value and their worth and about the beautiful purpose God has for their lives. And I came across Psalm 139 one day, and the verse, it says, "I praise you because I'm fearfully," meaning lovingly and wonderfully made. And I knew right in that moment, I was supposed to start some movement or ministry called Wonderfully Made to share the love of God with other girls and women. And so I did. I started Wonderfully Made when I was 20. And since then, we have become a national ministry with the honor of being able to serve millions of girls and women through our podcast, our resources, our events, and have had the honor of writing books. My book, Wonderfully Made, Discover the Identity, Love, and Worth You Were Created For. And my new book, Social Media Reset, a 30-day guided journey to unplug, reconnect with God, and reclaim your joy. And one of the most powerful messages I received from a reader is she said, "I used to believe no one loved me and that I should just take my life." And she said, "But I read your book one day and I know now that God loves me. And it gave me the hope to keep on living." And it's just been an honor to allow God to take the most broken parts of my life and the things that the world would shame me for, and to see him restore me and bring beauty and purpose. And the story of Joseph and talking about what was intended for evil, God intended for good and for the saving of many lives. And I am just called to give girls and women hope that no matter what they're going through, God can take them through the other side, and that there is hope I am called on a rescue mission to save girls' lives from suicide. And I go on to share my story of battling with depression and how God has restored my life and brought me to the other side, and that there's hope that that can happen for them too. I recently received a message from a college girl, and she had made some decisions to fall away from God and had found herself in a really abusive relationship. And her parents had intervened, and she had received a copy of my book. And at first she said she thought it would be corny and she didn't want to read it. But as she did, God began to use it to speak truth and life over her. The book is filled with hundreds of verses, and she just shared how God spoke directly to her through the verses and the stories. And today she is advocating for girls and women who've experienced abuse and is really bravely facing that even in court. And she shares how what she is going through, she knows God is actually using for good and for his purpose. Wonderfully Made, we have a lot of parents and moms writing in about how their daughters are struggling. And it truly is heartbreaking, just the sadness and the darkness so many girls are experiencing. And I've had the privilege and honor of mentoring girls and been able to pour into one young woman. She is 12 years old, and she's talented and smart and well-loved and liked, but she is believing so many lies and is really battling depression and thoughts that she's not good enough or thoughts that she shouldn't be here. And I've been able to help her identify the lies she's believing. And one day, as we wrote all those lies out, she told me all of them. We were able to write the truth at each single one. It's just been beautiful to see that God has used what I have gone through to be a light to other girls and to speak truth, that they can get through it and that there's hope and that there is healing possible for them.
Allie was 12 when her sadness first set in. Quiet, unexplained, that's when the lies began. Whispers of shame, of unworthiness, of not belonging. But years later, after an encounter with Jesus and a slow climb out of the darkness, she finds herself sitting beside another 12-year-old girl, this time helping her write down those same lies and speaking God's truth in their place. Through her ministry, Wonderfully Made, Allie is now reaching girls and women across the country with that same message of identity, healing, and hope. The girl who almost didn't make it is now helping thousands believe that they're loved and that they belong and that their story isn't over. If you want to learn more about Wonderfully Made, you can visit wonderfullymade.org. Allie also has a brand new book. It's called Social Media Reset, a 30-day guided journey to unplug, reconnect with God, and reclaim your joy. Both of those resources are in the show notes. The Unfolding is a faith podcast. You can discover more at myfaithpodcasts.com.